All right, we'll get rolling here. So hopefully everyone's doing well today, staying warm. We got our first snowfall here up where I'm at. I'm over in Streetsboro, Ohio, so we got a couple of inches last night. So this is, I guess, a good time to have an opportunity to, if nothing else, take a little bit of a mental vacation, have a chance to talk travel here. So my name is Mitchell Mack. All of you can just call me Mitch for short whenever you have any questions. I'm the business development manager for Collette. So I cover all of Ohio and a portion of West Virginia as well. I've had the opportunity as a rep to travel. I love it. I have a passion for it. I always have. I got into the industry with Collette at age 22 and have been here ever since. So I came with a dance partner that I brought, and I've loved it ever since. I was with Collette for 6.5 years, and then something happened in 2020, I guess a pandemic or something. So I ended up leaving the industry for about 2 years and just recently returned. I've been back for 6 months. And as a rep, I've had a chance to visit some amazing places, travel to some amazing countries. I've had the opportunity to visit 32 different countries over my 7 years with Collette. But one thing that I've discovered, and maybe you'll agree with me, some of the best places are right here in our backyard in the United States. I had a chance to visit Alaska 6 years ago. It wasn't a Collette tour, it was a family trip, but I loved it. It's an absolutely amazing area of the world. I go back at the drop of a hat in a second. I actually had a chance to do a flight seeing tour. So it was a pretty cool experience, and we do have an optional tour if you folks would like to have that same experience and do a flight seeing tour at one of the ports of call. I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail. I did have a little bit more hair back then, but that happens when you're in the travel industry. So my goal here today is to help paint as best of a picture as I can of what exactly are we going to see, what are we going to do on this trip. What are some of the areas that we go and visit? Why do we go to these areas? A little bit of history and background without sounding, like a history book and boring everyone to death. But I do want you all to know why the areas that we stop at are historically significant. So we'll just jump right into it. I'll go over a little bit about the experience that you can expect to have with Collette. I don't know how familiar the folks are in the room with Collette as a company. We've been around a little bit. Next year is going to be our 105th year in business. So I like to say I look okay for 105 years. Hair is starting to go, but otherwise, still upright and kicking. We're headquartered in Little Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So we're American owned and operated, family owned for 3 generations. And we've had the opportunity to take travelers and show them the world, whether it be Alaska, national parks, Europe. We visit all 7 continents and have 160 different tours. But we're going to be talking more specifically about the Alaska Discovery Tour today. Now, in terms of the kind of experience you can expect with Collette, we like to say that overall, we're a 4.5-star to 5-star tour operator. We stay in all 4-star hotel accommodations or better. We include hotel to hotel baggage handling, so you don't have to worry about lugging your bags around with you while you're on tour with us. One of my favorite parts about travel is the cultural experiences, getting to immerse yourself in the local culture. I find that, with those cultural immersion opportunities, you get a chance to truly appreciate the actual destination that you're visiting and really do a deep dive into the culture, get to meet the local people. And those are the kind of experiences that I always come back and I talk about, a little bit more. Yes, we're staying in very great hotels, have fantastic included meals, but those cultural immersion opportunities are some of the things that really stick out to me. Now, I'm not your tour manager for this trip. I'm the local guy. I work here in Ohio with group leaders and groups, like the Bowling Green Senior Center. You'll meet up in the destination with a tour manager who's an absolute expert in the destination. They'll be with you every step of the way, really adding light and bringing the destination to life. One of the great parts about doing an escorted tour is it's thoughtless travel. So when you get up in the morning, you don't have to think about, all right, what are we going to see? What are we going to do? Spend half of our time trying to map out and plan our day. Nobody has to worry about driving. I just got back from a 2-week European vacation. It made me appreciate the escorted tour aspect of things so much more. The fact that I don't have to navigate the, crazy winding roads of Paris. I can just sit back, relax, and let a professional that actually knows what they're doing do that worrying for you. We include all of the entrance fees, so any park fees that might come along when we're in Denali National Park. We include all of your comfortable on-tour motor coach transportation, a professionally planned out itinerary, and this tour is a combination of land and cruise. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So without further ado, everyone can raise their seat backs, their tray tables to their upright positions as we make our way over to the Alaska Discovery itinerary taking place September 13th through the 24th. So I'm going to go over a quick look at the tour at a glance, just to give you an idea, if you do have the flyers, how to read the flyers accurately and get an idea of the tour mapping. So wherever you see the black circles on this page, that's the city and the number of nights that we're going to be overnighting. So we're going to be starting out with one night in Fairbanks. We're going to be doing 2 nights in Denali. And the nice part about Denali during this trip is we're actually going to be overnighting not just 1, but 2 nights in Denali National Park. So you're right in the heart of where you want to be when it comes to the land portion of this tour. We also do 1 night in Talkeetna. When we make our way from Denali to Talkeetna, we actually have a train experience for you. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as we go along here. And then we kind of pass the baton over, so to speak, for the cruise aspect. We use Holland America for the cruise portion of this tour. They're a great partner of ours. They do this area very, very well, and they're absolute experts, and the quality that they provide really aligns well with the quality that we provide at Collette and the kind of experiences that we're trying to offer to our travelers. So you're saying, Mitch, what's the advantage of doing this, with Collette in conjunction with Holland America? Why wouldn't we just go straight to Holland America and book it through them directly? So there's a couple of different reasons for that. One, everything is under one umbrella. So when it comes to our insurance policy, our travel insurance covers not only the land portion of this tour, but it also covers the cruise and the airfare. So if something does happen, you're not able to go along with the group on the trip and you do have to cancel, you're not only getting 100% of your money back minus the trip insurance premium on the land, but you're also getting your money back for the cruise portion. You're getting your money back on the air side of things. So we just have a lot more control over everything with it being under one umbrella. And you also have a higher and elevated level of service because you have the Collette tour manager with you on the land side. You also have the tour manager with you on the cruise ship. So instead of being one of 2,000 on the cruise ship, where it can be very easy to get lost in the shuffle with all those people, you're one of 44. So there's a little bit more of, that group aspect and that group camaraderie aspect as well. So we're going to jump right into it. Like I said, I'm going to paint as best of a picture as I can of what we're going to see, what we're going to do, what these areas look like, because Alaska is such a naturally beautiful, beautiful destination. That's ultimately why folks go, they travel, and they visit Alaska. They want to see that nature, that wildlife, and unspoiled beauty. So we're going to be starting out in Fairbanks, which is the largest city in the interior region of Alaska. Back in the day, in the early 1900s, it was founded just as a temporary trading post because of its location, and then was later converted into a permanent one once they started to discover some of that gold in the area. So we'll have a chance to unpack, get settled into Fairbanks before we start our first day of touring and sightseeing. And this is going to be your first introduction into all of the natural beauty that Alaska has to offer. And one of the main forms of transportation back in the 1800s was these steamboats that they used, whether it be for trading or just for general transportation. It's this historic steamboat. It's the Sternwheeler Discovery. And the steamboat tradition and travel dates all the way back to the late 1800s. So the steamboats did play a very crucial and important role when it came to the transportation. So we're going to have a chance to cruise along the river, start to be introduced to some of that natural beauty that you're hearing all about that Alaska has to offer. It's a 3-hour cruise. It gets us into the heart of Alaska. You have a chance to see some of the areas that you wouldn't otherwise have a chance to see, whether it be driving or walking the area. You're seeing some of these quaint little, just small little villages along the riverside, some of these cabins and people that live out in the wilderness, remote away from, the hustle and bustle of the cities and the large population. So not only is this going to introduce us to a section of Alaska that's, very explored very little, but it's also going to take us to meet a family who's made basically the rivers of Alaska their way of life for 5 generations. So they're going to give us a nice little peek into what life is like for a traditional Alaskan family living along these rivers. You'll hear stories from the family that passed down 5 generations. And then later on today, we're going to set off by motor coach for our home for the next 2 nights. Like I mentioned, we're going to be staying in Denali National Park for the next 2 nights of this trip. So you'll get your first glimpses and views of the incredible Denali, which is North America's tallest mountain along the way. And the Athabasca tribe and people, have their roots settled here in this area, and they hold Denali in very high regards. The name of the mountain actually translates to the high one, which is very aptly named because it towers 20,000 feet above sea level. It's also, this area around here is known to be a great area to spot grizzly bears. So one of the best, experiences when it comes to Alaska is having a chance to see some of those grizzlies, some of those elk, the caribou in their natural habitats. And we like to see the grizzlies from a distance. We don't want to, meet them up close, but see them comfortably seated on the motor coach. So to learn all about Denali tonight, we have our very first dinner as a group. It's going to be an included dinner. It's going to be a combination of a dinner and a musical performance, which really helps paint and tell the story of the first brave men to actually climb and summit Denali, which is followed by a delicious dinner. Start to be introduced to some of that delicious Alaska cuisine and hear all about the story of the climbers of Walter Harper, Harry Karstens, Hudson Stuck, and Robert Tatum, which made history when they first summited Denali back in June of 1913. And then we'll have a chance after dinner to check into our little shack that we're going to be calling home in Denali for the next 2 nights of the trip. So here's the hotel that we use. It is very rustic. If you do pay an upcharge, we will put the rest of the boards back on the shack for you, free of charge. Just kidding. This is our little shack that we're going to be staying. It's the McKinley Chalet Resort. So we're going to be calling this home for 2 nights. It's a great location, set right in the heart of Denali National Park. And to give you an idea of what exactly the backdrop looks like, where you're going to be staying, this is what you have a chance to wake up to for the next 2 mornings of the journey. As you can see, it's set right in the heart of the mountains. You're much more likely to be caught up in a traffic jam caused by some of the local critters and wildlife compared to people. So a very authentic experience when it comes to Denali. And speaking of Denali, we've got a full day of touring and sightseeing, getting right into the heart of Denali National Park during our Tundra Wilderness tour that we have in store for you folks. So this is going to be your best opportunity on the trip to see some of that nature, some of that wildlife. It's a fully narrated tour. It runs anywhere from 7 to 9 hours, so about 8 hours in total. So you're getting plenty of time to experience all that Denali has to offer. We make frequent stops along the way, so you're actually very rarely on the motor coach during your trek through Denali National Park. But speaking of the motor coach, it's a little bit more of a unique experience. Kind of takes you a little bit of a step back in time because we can't bring the very large, full-size motor coach like we use for the rest of the tour. Denali National Park doesn't allow it. So to get around that, we are allowed to use kind of the classic school buses like we would have, when we were in grade school and high school. So we'll hop aboard the Magic School Bus and we'll make our way through Denali. Some of the locals will be on the lookout for Alaska's Big Five. So if anyone's ever been to Africa or done any research when it comes to Africa safaris, you probably have heard of that term, the Big Five. So Alaska, a lot of folks didn't realize Alaska also has their own very own Big Five. And those Big Five animals that we want to keep a lookout for, kind of check them off of our list as we go, are the brown bear, the moose, the caribou, the wolf, and the Dall sheep. Because we're in Denali for such a ample amount of time, we're going to have the best chance possible. Pray for good weather, keep our fingers crossed, and be able to cross off the big 5 from our list when it comes to the animals. There's also a train ride that we have in store for you folks. Trains, especially back in the day during the 1900s, 1850s, was a big form of transportation. So to give you that authentic Alaskan experience and truly experience all that it has to offer, this is almost a trip where it's planes, trains, and automobiles, because we had the Sternwheeler Discovery earlier, and now we have the train ride as we make our way from Denali into Talkeetna. It's a quirky little village, definitely has a lot of personality, so much so that they named their mayor a cat. They nominated the cat. It was a write-in vote. There was nobody else on the ballot, so they said, heck, this cat could probably do just as good a job as anyone else. So you'll learn a little bit about Stubbs and how he's actually the town mayor for 19 years. But before we actually get to Talkeetna, everyone's going to have access to these beautiful dome cars. So the dome cars, if you haven't had a chance to experience them before, it is a very cool experience. Basically, the top of the dome car is all glass, so you have a 180-degree view of the surrounding area. It really does make a difference being in a train car that's enclosed compared to having that domed car experience where you actually feel like you're part of the surrounding area, of the nature. And it's just a very unique, one-of-a-kind experience, especially when it comes to Alaska. You know, you feel like you're basically one with the nature. So here's another good shot of what that view looks like from the dome car. You see the trees passing by. You see these little, rivers and wildlife as you make your way to Talkeetna. And the train, I always say it's train time. So, it's always ish whenever it comes to the length of time that you're on the train. But the train in general lasts about 4 hours. So you're getting plenty of time on the train before we eventually get into Talkeetna, where we're going to be calling home for the next night of our journey. We're going to check into the Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge. It's on the outside, a rustic hotel, but on the inside, it offers all of the spectacular, amenities and comforts that we're used to whenever it comes to travel. So we're keeping that, standard 4-star quality. Before we end up getting onto the train, we're going to make a stop in Anchorage, which is Alaska's largest city. And for the fans of sunlight, during the summertime, they enjoy about 19 and a half hours of sunlight. So it does kind of mess with your head a little bit when, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night and the sun is still out like it's the middle of the day. So it does take a little bit to get used to, but it is an area that does offer some spectacular nature and wildlife, more specifically the Turnagain Arm. So our touring is going to take us along the arm today. It's this deep glacial fjord that connects the Gulf of Alaska, and we're going to visit the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center with a local guide. So we will have some local guides from time to time that are just there to provide a little bit of a different perspective on the tour. And this Wildlife Conservation Center is where injured bears, wolves, porcupines, moose, will come. They're cared for here in this beautiful 200-acre rehabilitation site and then released back into the wild to reintroduce them. So a pretty cool experience meeting up with the local guide, learning all about the Wildlife Conservation Center, and then we're going to make our final stop in Whittier, which is where we're going to pick up the cruise portion of the ship. Like I mentioned, we use Holland America for the cruise portion. So it's going to be a 7-night cruise, and we're going to be cruising all throughout the Inside Passage. It's basically, a 4.5-star floating resort. It's got everything under the sun that you can possibly think of. Modern and comfortable lounges, tons of different entertainment options, tons of different dining options. Basically anything that you can possibly think of. You can get a little bit creative when it comes to the dining options, or you can get as basic table as you want. The ship has a little bit of something for everyone, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner is included while you're aboard the ship. So you do not have to worry about paying for any meals while you're on the ship. It's truly no frills travel. You unpack, and then this is going to be your floating home for the next 7 nights of the cruise. So the ship that we use is the Holland America New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam is going to be the ship. It's 1,900 passengers, 800 crew members. So if you think about the ratio, you're going to be very well taken care of, very spoiled by the crew on the ship. So we have 3 different cabin options available for the folks who might be interested and want to go along with us on this trip. The first option is going to be what I call basic cable. It's the inside cabin. It's 200 square feet, no window. If you're the kind of traveler that says, hey, I'm in Alaska, I'm going to be in my room to sleep and get ready in the morning, and that's about it, I'd probably recommend the inside cabin. It's the lowest price point. If you're somebody that likes to have at least a little bit of a window, give yourself a little bit of a view, we do have the ocean view available. This is the next step up for cabins. It is a little bit larger, 275 square feet. If you're somebody that likes to, go for all the bells and whistles, and you're saying, hey, Mitch, this is an Alaska trip that I've been dreaming of my entire life. This is right at the top of my bucket list trip. I want to blow it out and I want to do it right and do it right the first time. We do have the veranda, which offers a balcony for you folks. So it's floor to ceiling windows overlooking this beautiful private veranda. It's a great place, to go out in the morning, kind of sit out there, just watch the world go by, enjoy a nice cup of coffee, and just start your day off on a good note. And then at night to watch the sunset as well. So when it comes to some of the amenities on board, yes, if you're a gambling kind of person, there is a casino on board the cruise ship. There's also a fitness center, a spa. If the ladies in the room want to treat themselves to a nice spa day during one of the cruising days. Nightly entertainment. There's always live music, singing and dancing. So it is a very lively atmosphere, and it's really impossible to go a day and say, wow, there was nothing to do on the cruise ship. There's always something to do, whether it be interactive discussions. There's a movie theater on board. If you want to bring the bathing suits, there's a hot tub at the top of the ship as well. If you don't mind a little bit of cold air on the outside of the hot tub, it's such a cool spot to just sit in the hot tub and watch the glaciers go by, enjoy a nice glass of wine, and really say, all right, this is the dream. I'm living the life right now. But however you choose to experience your time on the ship, we will start some of our sailing and start to see some of the real highlights, and one of those being the Hubbard Glacier. So for the folks that are in this trip, they say, hey, I want to see some of the most amazing glaciers. This is going to be one of the best days for you when we have a chance to cruise past this absolutely mammoth and enormous Hubbard Glacier. It's one of Alaska's most iconic advancing glaciers, and it is a tidewater glacier. So what that means is it's known for its large chunks of ice that come crashing down into the sea. And this is a day that I recommend getting up onto the deck of the cruise ship, get a good spot right along the railing. If you say, hey, Mitch, I ended up getting, pushed towards the back on the opposite side of the railing, the cruise ship does a really good job today of making sure that they do a full 360-degree rotation, so that no matter where you are on the cruise ship, everyone has a chance to see that glacier up close and personal and get that amazing shot. So we'll have a chance to cruise through Glacier Bay. It's such an amazing and unique national park. See some of these different tidewater glaciers, snow-capped mountains, fjords, ocean coastlines. We're gonna have a chance to see freshwater lakes along the way as well. Keep your eyes peeled, because during the time that we're going, we still have a chance to see the humpback or killer whales that call these bays home, harbor seals, sea lions, otters, you name it. And one of the best wow experiences is when some of those large chunks of ice actually come off of the glacier and come crashing down, because it's, you're out right in the heart of the wilderness. So you don't have cars beeping, you don't have the hustle and bustle of the people like you would in a big city. So the silence, you just kind of take it in, and then all of a sudden, whenever a large chunk of ice comes crashing down off of the glacier and into the water, it almost causes like an eruption because of everything being so quiet around it. It's one of those moments that everyone, is waiting for, and when it finally happens, it is a very, very cool experience. And here's a great shot of the scene that you can expect to see in Glacier Bay. And some of the ice that you see at the front of the glacier in the distance is anywhere between 75 and 200 years old. So that ice that you see actually breaking off while you cruise could be snow that actually fell in the mountains back in, the middle 1700s, which is kind of crazy to think about. So after our cruising day of Glacier Bay, we're going to make our first stop at the port of call, and that port of call is going to be Skagway. So Skagway became incredibly iconic during the gold rush. This is where the gold rush really started and really started to boom. The population was basically only a couple hundred people back in the day. And then once they discovered that there was gold here in Skagway, everyone kind of got gold fever and they freaked out and they rushed into Skagway to get in on some of the action, so to speak. So the population actually boomed from just a couple hundred people to up to 10,000 people at one point. So whenever we stop at these different ports of call, we give you an entire day at the port. So it's not rushed. We're not stopping and you only get a couple of hours to experience the port. You're getting an entire day at each one of these stops, be the first one being Skagway. So what we do is a short little orientation tour to give you the lay of the land. We don't want it to be too structured because we understand, okay, if you only have a day here, we want to make sure that you're utilizing your time and making the stop exactly what you want it to be. So maybe if there's any brewery fans in the room, you want to stop at the iconic Skagway Brewery and get yourself a nice cold glass of Skagway beer. Maybe you want to go on a gold rush tour and learn a little bit more about the gold rush that happened back in the 1800s. If you're a little bit more of a fan of structure and want to book something through us, we do have a Skagway tour and Summit Overlook. It's a little bit of a shorter tour, 1.5 to 2 hours tops. And basically this gives you a chance to get to know some of the town's natural side as well as the historic side. So during the tour, we'll have a chance to see some of the historical sites, which include the Gold Rush Cemetery. We also will make our way up to this beautiful summit overlook that gives you an amazing panoramic view of the surrounding area. So if you are a fan of taking, pictures, if you're a photographer, the summit overlook is basically the best place to get your photos of the surrounding area. The option is $60, so it's not going to break the bank and cost you an arm and a leg. If you want to add a little bit more structure to the stop, you certainly can. If not, you've got the entire day to take in all that Skagway has to offer. So the next port of call the next day is going to be Juneau. It's a very interesting city. It's Alaska's capital city, and interesting enough, despite it being the capital, it's a very, very remote city. So much so that it can only really be reached by boat or by seaplane. It's also an area that's very well known for its mining, its fishing scene, very, very diverse wildlife, tons and tons of acres of unspoiled beauty. So for the bird watchers in the room, this is a good place to see your bald eagles. It's got 800 species of different birds, salmon, bears, and whales, you name it. Juneau does offer a little bit of something for everyone. So if there's any shoppers in the room, any volunteers to raise their hand, anyone on the Olympic shopping, I don't see a lot of hands going up. That's all right. If you don't want to be honest about the shopping, that's okay. I completely understand. But if you are a shopper, whenever it comes to travel, I like to shop for some of the authentic things. If it's made in China, I usually like to leave it on the shelf. And Alaska is a great place to pick up some handmade, authentic goods, which go towards supporting the local businesses and local communities. So if you are a shopper, just felt shy, didn't want to raise your hand, one thing to look for whenever it comes to the shopping, usually at the bottom of whatever you're buying or on the tag, look for what's called the silver hand. So the silver hand basically signifies that an item was made by a Native Alaskan with Native Alaskan blood. If you see that's made in China, it usually equals leave on the shelf. So if you're looking for something very authentic, look for that silver hand on the item. If whale watching is something that interests you and you're looking at doing, Juneau is the best place for it. So we do have an option through us. There's also options that you can purchase through the cruise ship as well if we're not offering something that you're looking at doing. But If you don't mind giving up a little bit of free time, the whale watching tour in Juneau is something that I highly recommend. This is going to be your best chance to get up close and personal with not just whales, but porpoises, sea lions, also seals, otters, you name it. The cruise and whale watching tour itself takes place about 3 hours or so. So you're getting plenty of time. The cost is $150. So if you'd like to do the whale watching tour, we just need to know 60 days prior to departure whether or not you'd like to book the whale watching tour. So next up, our port of call is going to be Ketchikan. So geographically, if you're saying, Mitch, where are we geographically? This is Alaska's most southeastern city. It's an area that's known for a couple of different things. It has a couple of different claims to fame. So Ketchikan is known for the salmon capital of the world. So if there are any salmon fans in the room and you do want to experience, some of that fresh Alaskan Ketchikan salmon, this is going to be your best chance to do so. In my opinion, I've had the salmon in Ketchikan. I am a big seafood fan. I don't know that you can find salmon that's fresher anywhere in the world. It's also known as the city of totem poles for very good reason. Ketchikan has the largest collection in the entire world of totem poles. So it is very popular to do a totem pole tour while you're in Ketchikan. Very, cheap, inexpensive way to experience the city, experience the culture, because with these totem poles, they're not just totem poles. A lot of the local people call them story poles because the, Aboriginal ancestors who made these, original totem poles, at each level of the pole, they almost tell a different story and different generation of the family. So it's a nice little peek into kind of that local experience. And if you do want to do some shopping, Historic Creek Street is one of the most popular spots, not just to do some shopping, but do some walking around. Your guide will paint some of the colorful background of Creek Street and all that it has to offer. Back in the day, in the 1800s, early 1900s, it was not the beautiful, iconic, very open and welcoming to tourist street that you see today. It does have a bit of a colorful past. If anyone in the room has ever been to Amsterdam and has had a chance to experience the red light district or knows what the red light district is, basically Creek Street used to be the red light district of Alaska, funny enough. It has transformed and changed over the years. So when you experience Creek Street, there won't be any window shopping or anything like that. We do have an option while you're in Ketchikan. If you don't mind giving up a little bit of free time, you do have the chance to do the flight seeing tour in Ketchikan. This was the flight seeing tour that I personally had a chance to do. It was absolutely incredible. It's something that I'll come back and I'll talk about for years and years and years, something that I won't forget. So you have a chance to fly through Misty Fjord National Monuments, this beautiful 2 million acre park covered by glaciers years and years ago. And so this flight seeing cruise is going to take you to areas that are truly, truly unspoiled natural beauty. You'll see fjords as you soar along. You'll see these hidden little waterfalls, these quaint little lakes, and also have a chance when you land to land on an actual one of those tucked away little hidden lakes. So the plane actually touches down in the water and you come to a smooth stop in the lake. It is a very, very one of a kind and very unique experience. If you don't mind splurging a little bit, the flight seeing tour does cost a little bit more. It's $329 per person, but it does last about 2 hours. And if this is one of your bucket list type trips, this is truly a bucket list experience. So that's our last port of call that we're going to be stopping at. The rest of the cruise is going to take you through the remainder of the Inside Passage, pass by, some of these small little towns with the houses built right along the coastline. During some of the days, like I mentioned, there is tons and tons of stuff to do on the ship, whether it be attending some of the seminars, try and make some of that money that you spent along the trip back at the casino. Maybe you just want to head to the top deck, kick back, relax, find a nice chair, grab a glass of wine, and just watch the world go by, taking some of the remaining moments of the trip before we get into Vancouver and fly out of Vancouver on the back end. And one thing that, and some of the feedback that I get from folks that do this trip is, whenever it comes to the Collette experience, not just for this trip, but as a whole, the feedback that we get is, Collette really under-promised and they over-delivered. They offered so much more that, wasn't even in the itinerary. The Collette guides went above and beyond to take care of us and just make this trip, not just a bucket list trip, but something that really does stick with people and stays with you through eternity. And then unfortunately, as much as all of you fell in love with Alaska, we do have to bring you back. It is company policy. As much as all of you just want to stay there forever, we do have to bring you back. But hopefully you're coming back with those memories and tons and tons and tons of pictures, because this is an area that it's, it is a mouth-dropping trip where you're just in awe of how, something so spectacular can exist and be right in our backyard. So I want everyone to know exactly what their money's getting them, what's included with this trip. So the price for the tour for an inside double, that was the inside room, the first cabin that I talked about without the window, is $51.39. That's based on double occupancy, so 2 people sharing a room. This is a cruise, so the single rates with the cruises do tend to skew a bit higher than like the typical just land only tour. If you are going as a solo, the single for this is $75.99. And I will say and make a disclaimer for the solo travelers, if you are traveling solo, I do recommend getting your deposits in sooner rather than later, because with the solo rooms, they are on a first come, first served basis. So if you're planning on traveling solo, I do encourage you to get those deposits in as soon as possible so that we can secure a single room for you. If you want to upgrade your room and have the ocean view, which has the window, it's a little bit larger room, that 275 square foot room. It's $57.99 for the ocean view. For the single, it's $85.99. And if you're somebody that says, hey, Mitch, this is a once in a lifetime type trip, I'm not going back year after year, I want to have the best possible experience. I want to splurge a little bit. I don't want to leave the money for the kids. I earned it. It's my money. They can earn their money over the years, and so that they can enjoy an experience like this. Maybe you want to do the veranda, which is the balcony cabin. That balcony cabin is running $62.99 for a double, $94.99 for a single. So what exactly is included in the price? What's my money getting me ultimately at the end of the day? So what's included with the price is the land. That includes your hotels, your meals that you see in the itinerary, tips for those included meals, your motor coach transportation while you're on land, your professional tour manager, your local guides, air and taxes also included in that price. So that is a air inclusive price. We included air and tax from Detroit. The cruise portion is included in there, as well as port charges. So don't need to worry about paying for port charges. Any admission fees are all included. So it is a very inclusive price. We're not a nickel and dime type company. If you are interested in getting deposited, ensuring your spot on tour, it is a $800 deposit plus the insurance is $449. The insurance is due at the time of deposit. The nice part about both the insurance plus the deposit is they're both fully refundable up until March 13th. So you just want to remember that magic date of March 13th. I had on here that only 10 seats are remaining because that's how many seats we held up front for the center. I do need to go back and change it because I did see this morning that we have 2 people booked and signed up already. So we've got 8 seats now available in terms of the updated count. So if this is something that you really want to do, this is a bucket list trip, you don't want to be shut out on it, I do encourage you to at least get your deposit in, ensure your spot on tour if something happens up until that March 13th date. You can cancel off, no questions asked. You get your deposit back, you get your insurance money back, and that's refunded to you in cash. It's not a travel voucher or anything like that. Final payment is due May 16th. So you've got plenty of time if you want to make periodic payments and installments along the way. If you just want to wait till that May 16th date and pay it all in one lump sum, you can do so. The choice is yours. Now, I mentioned the travel insurance. Our travel insurance is a little bit different than the typical travel insurance that you might be used to, in that our travel insurance allows our guests to cancel for absolutely any reason all the way up until 24 hours prior to departure. And it truly is any reason. We call it the bad hair day policy, because even if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you're having a bad hair day, we don't ask questions. You can cancel off the trip and get 100% of your money back minus the $449 for the trip insurance premium. And it's not a travel voucher. It's not future travel credits. It's a full cash refund, how you paid us. There's been numerous write-ups and articles in Travel Weekly about Collette's efforts over the course of the pandemic. Because the pandemic was something that, we've never seen in our lifetime in the travel industry, and hopefully, knock on wood, something that we'll never have to deal with and go through again. And some companies were left scrambling. They didn't know what to do. Some that were financially unstable ended up going under. So if folks were booked with some of those companies, they were either given a travel voucher that maybe they couldn't use again, or depending on the company they were traveling with, they weren't able to get their money back at all. With Collette, we really stepped up to the plate, so to speak, and showed what we're all about as a company, empowered our guests so much so that we ended up refunding over $170 million of client money over the course of the pandemic. And that's $170 million that we refunded in cash. We didn't feel like it was an option. If we felt that if our folks didn't have a chance to actually go on and experience a Collette tour, we don't feel like it's morally right to keep our clients' hard-earned money. So we refunded all of that money, showed who we're really all about as a company, and we feel like it did pay dividends because the folks that we took care of are now coming back. Now that travel is back open to the world, thankfully, people are traveling, and they're traveling in a big, big way. The travel insurance does cover you while you're on tour as well. So it acts as medical insurance, trip delay, trip interruption, theft, evacuation, you name it. We make sure that our travel insurance has all the stops in place. And then last but not least, we do have our loyalty program. So if you're somebody that has traveled either with the center or with Collette before, think about when your previous trip was. If this Alaska trip falls within 12 months or a year of your previous trip, you do get an extra $150 off per person, so $300 per couple. If this trip falls within 2 years of your previous trip, you get an extra $100 off per person. So just a way of us saying thank you for your loyal travels over the years. And then in terms of how exactly do I sign up? If you want to fill out a physical reservation form, we can get you one from the center. The most important part when you go to fill out the reservation form is actually the name section. You do need a passport with this trip because we end in Vancouver and we fly out of Vancouver. So you do need a passport, and you need your name as it appears on your passport. So when you go to fill out the name on the name section, no nicknames or anything. You want to put your name exactly as it appears on your passport, passport number, etc. When it comes to payment options, we accept checks. Checks are made payable to Collette, and I'll have the spelling on the next screen here. All major credit cards. If you know where to find money orders nowadays, we accept money orders as well. I don't see them too often, but I hear that they are still out there. Or if you are a little bit tech savvy and can navigate your way around the internet a little bit, you can sign up directly right online as well. I included the trip web link below right under the word "or." You can type that web link right into your phone browser or your computer browser. I'll leave it up here for the remainder of the time if anyone wants to take a picture of that web link. But it's not just a place you can sign up. It's kind of a one-stop shop. So it's got all of the know before you go information on that trip web link as well. So clothing and packing tips, what the weather is going to be like, what to expect in terms of walking. This is a 1 rated tour. We rate all of our tours on a scale of 1 to 5. This is a 1, so it's the most leisurely paced tour that we offer. We say if you can walk 30 to 45 minutes, stopping and starting over the course of the day, you can do this tour, no problem. So even if you don't want to book and sign up through this trip web link, I would recommend at least stowing and having this link saved away somewhere for your reference, because it is a very, very valuable tool and offers a ton of different information on the trip. So at this time, I can answer any questions that anyone might have. Anyone have any questions?
I assume that price is per person, correct?
Did you hear that, Mitchell?
I didn't. Maybe you could repeat it for me.
Is the price per person? I assume it is.
Like the double? So when it
Yes,
says
yes. Yep, that's price per person. So when I say double, that just means the room configuration. So a double room would be 2 people sharing a room. A single room would be just a solo traveler. But yes, those prices were per person.
You mentioned the walking and it's pretty leisurely. Is it possible to take a scooter on the tour? Or, on the trip?
It would be a little bit tough. I always like to be honest with folks when it comes to an escorted tour, especially on the land side of this trip. The cruise would be a little bit easier with the scooter. But with the land side, if you do rely on a scooter, I would probably say that an escorted tour would not be the thing for you. If you can get by with a cane or a walker, yes, you can do this tour, no problem. But I want to be honest, when it comes to a scooter, the escorted tour probably would not be the experience that you're looking for. I did get a question from the chat. Is this open to anyone or just the seniors? Also, is there any way to share a room with anyone else if you don't have family or friends interested? That's a very good question. So this tour is open to anyone. You don't have to be a member of the senior center. If you have friends, family, acquaintances that might be interested in this tour, maybe they're not from the area, maybe they're coming from out of state, they can absolutely still come along on this tour with us. We can get them pricing from their local gateway. And when I say gateway, that just means airport. We can get them transportation depending on how far they are from the airport to and from their local gateway. So they don't have to be from Bowling Green or even from Ohio to join us on this tour. Whenever they go to fill out the physical form, or if they're signing up online and it comes to the gateway section, they'll just indicate which airport that they prefer to use. We'll get them pricing. We'll get them flights and make sure that they're getting there, and then they're just meeting up with the rest of the group once they arrive. So you don't have to be a member of the center to travel with us on this. And if you don't have a roommate but are looking for one, we don't assign roommates. We can get the center a list of all the travelers that are booked and signed up. And if there are 2 solos booked and signed up on the trip, we can match you up, maybe get together, go out to lunch, get to know each other a little bit, see if you jive and feel like, okay, yeah, we can spend a couple week trip with one another to save you on that single supplement. But as a company, we don't pair folks up with other singles. We do it very strategically that way. I've run into instances before in the past, travelers traveling with other companies, that they get paired up with a random roommate, and that roommate turns out to be a chronic snorer, and they blame the company because their roommate snored, and they're like, who the heck did you pair us up with here? So to alleviate that situation from happening, we don't pair up roommates, but I know that the Bowling Green Center would be more than happy if there are 2 single roommates or singles traveling on the same trip, pairing them up, getting them together, go out for lunch, and see if you jive and connect and can spend a trip with one another. It's a nice way to save a couple $1,000s a piece too. Yes, question in the front.
We're going at an ideal time for the Northern Lights. Is there any way that there'd be an opportunity to see them? I know you have to be out of the city lights. For example, the Denali Lodge is out in the country. Is there any opportunity to catch that?
So you're going at the start of the fall. So to see the northern lights, when it comes to Alaska, to give yourself at least the best possible opportunity, you basically have to travel in the winter time. We do have a tour, it's branded Alaska's Northern Lights, but it only operates essentially January through March. That's going to be the time that you have the most hours of darkness, with this being the start of their fall and starting to get more hours of darkness, less hours of daylight. You do have a little bit better chance, but this isn't something that I would go in expecting to, hey, I'm going to have the best possible chance to see the northern lights. If you do happen to get a glimpse of them, just consider it to be icing on the cake, but this isn't a tour that you go into expecting to be seeing the lights every day. But it happens. It does happen, on occasion this time of the year.
In the room, the one without windows. So I'm gonna travel with my friend. Can there be 2 twin beds?
Yes, there can. Yep, that's the normal configuration of the room, or 2
Perfect.
twin beds.
Okay.
And was there a question in the back there? Yes.
Is your passport required when you reserve, make a reservation, or can that be added later?
It can be added later. Yeah, if you don't have a passport, or if your passport's going to be expired come the time of the trip, you can still book and sign up. When it comes to the passport section, just leave that section blank and we'll collect that information. We just need it before you actually depart. So yeah, no worries if you don't have a passport yet, or if your passport's expired, that you can still book and sign up for the trip. That's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
In the back.
If a person can't walk 2-3 blocks, is this trip not for them?
If you can't walk more than 2-3 blocks, I would say that you can still do the trip, because whenever we stop at the ports of call, I mean, you can walk as far as you want or as little distance as you want. The nice part is the cruise ships really drop you right in the port. So you just have to walk a little bit to get to the nearest, cafe, restaurant, whatever the case is. So if this, when it comes to mobility, if you can walk 10, 15 minutes, stopping and starting over the course of time, you can still do this tour. It's the folks that rely on the wheelchairs, the scooters, that I would probably say no. But yeah, if you can at least walk a couple blocks, you can still do this tour. Any other questions? Yep.
If that's the case and they're slow, I mean, I would assume that would be no problem. If they can walk, 3-4 blocks, but it has to be slow pace.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's the normal pacing that we take with all of our tours. Our main demographic that we have going on our tours are seniors. Basically ages 60 to 75 is where we get the majority of our travelers. We do get folks that are older, we do get folks that are younger, but that's our main core demographic. So we pace all of our tours according to that demographic. So it's not, when I say this is a 1 out of 5, we don't rate that based on, the demographic 30 to 40. We base it off of seniors. So we take all of our tours, no matter what, very slow pace. Yep.
You had mentioned there's 44 seats on the Denali school bus, but only 8 reservations are left.
For the center, yes. So it's not just the Bowling Green Center that's going to be with us, and it's nice because we don't have to worry about filling up an entire bus just from Bowling Green and have to worry about the trip potentially canceling if we don't get enough people. We held 10 seats right up front for the center, so those 10 seats are guaranteed ours. So we're guaranteed first 5 couples or first 10 people, whichever way you want to look at it, are guaranteed to have a spot on the tour. Anything after that is going to be on a first come, first served basis. So when I say there were 8 seats remaining, those are 8 seats that we have held specifically for the Bowling Green Center. Yes.
So can I give my credit card number today, right now?
You can fill out a physical reservation form from the center they can get you, or if you want to use that web link, you can upload your credit card information to that secure payment link as well. It's really whatever you'd prefer.
Computer acts up all the time.
Yeah, we might want to get you a physical reservation form as well then. And one of the physical flyers as well, if for the folks that aren't as comfortable navigating online. That's no problem. Any other questions, comments? No,
This one you're running for the year,
I'm sorry.
are you running other tours that do the same thing at a different time?
We're just not doing it with Bowling Green.
Is that something you can sign up for through anyway, even though you're not running it through Bowling Green?
You could, the price would be different. You can go to, your local travel agent. They'd be able to book it. Most major travel agencies know the name Collette very, very well. You could book it through them. The price would change and is more than likely going to jump up a bit though, because we get special group pricing. So that's one of the big benefits of going through a group. But if you can't travel during this time of the year, we do operate this essentially June through the end of September. So you can go to a local travel agency and book a different date. The pricing will just vary depending on the time of the year that you're going.
Me again. Okay, I had talked to Danielle earlier when I read about this happening. And she said that Collette is providing a bus from Bowling Green to the airport complimentary. This is true?
We are, and I'm a terrible rep. I completely forgot to mention that. We do, for any of our groups, we do a hometown pickup. So we actually come right out to the center. We pick everyone up and we take you to and from the Detroit airport. So you don't have to worry about the hassle, paying for airport parking, bugging somebody to get you there. Basically, your vacation starts from the moment that you leave locally. And I
Okay.
apologize for not mentioning that.
So this will be Detroit to Fairbanks nonstop?
It won't be nonstop. Nope. There will be, you can expect a stop along the way. Typically just one stop. The nice part about using Detroit is it's one of the biggest gateways that we have around us in Ohio. Like my home gateway is Cleveland. If I'm traveling to Alaska, I'm actually usually stopping over 2 places. The fact that you guys can utilize Detroit and have that as an option, it's typically one stopover for Detroit.
Now, I know we have an advantage of 3 or is it 4 hours? They're behind us. In the time change.
That is a good question. Time difference, CLE and Alaska is, give me 1 second. Sorry, I just don't know it off the top of my head like I should. I believe it's 4 hours, but let me take a look. See. And what I do before, it's 4 hours. I couldn't remember for the life of me. I had a little brain fart. It is 4 hour time difference. So we are 4 hours ahead of them. So there is a little bit of a time shift. And what I do too as a rep is I'll come either out there in person or do one of these Zooms now that, Zoom is kind of more of a thing these days, is I will walk you through all of your document set. You'll get a nice physical document packet that goes through all of the know before you go stuff, takes you through all the ins and outs, and I will help walk you through that document set, answer any questions, go through anything on the logistical on the logistical side of things, just to make sure everyone's comfortable and knows what to expect. So yeah, you'll be seeing me again about 2 weeks prior to the trip for anyone that books and signs up, and we'll have a nice little question and answer period and go over the documents together.
Yeah, it's a very long distance. So is this flight going to be pretty early in the morning, even though we have the benefit of 4 hours?
It just depends on flight schedules. Generally, it's morning or afternoon. Just depends on which carrier we end up going with. And just so you know, when it comes to flight schedules and the operators that we use all the major ones. Delta is the main one that goes out of Detroit that we typically use. So you're never going to see a Spirit or Frontier, any of the budget ones. But typically the flights, whenever it comes to going from Ohio or Michigan into Alaska, you're leaving either in the late morning, early afternoon, and then you're getting there in the evening. Just kind of the flow of it. It's like Europe, if you leave, whenever you're traveling to Europe, you're typically leaving in the afternoon, and then the overnight flight gets you there into the morning with the time shift. So we usually get in the evening
Fairbanks,
for Alaska.
Fairbanks is pretty well get there, sleep, and leave.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Well, with a schedule that leaves later in the day, you would pretty well get to Fairbanks, sleep, and then you'd be leaving for the coach tour to Denali.
Right. Yep. That's why we overnight in Fairbanks. That's why we don't do the welcome dinner on that first day, just because there's varying flight schedules. Some are getting in later than others. So we give a chance for everyone to finally, get in, check into the hotel, and then the next morning is really the start of our touring and sightseeing in Denali.
How long is the flight from Detroit to Fairbanks?
Again, it's not a direct flight, so it really just depends on where we're stopping over. So I couldn't give you a real accurate answer because there is no direct flight from Detroit into Fairbanks. So it would be broken up.
But I mean, is it like 6 hours, 8 hours? I have no idea.
It'd be over.
In total, you're
Yeah.
talking about the entire.
I'm
like-
just talking about the flight itself, how long it takes you to fly to Fairbanks.
Probably 10, I think.
About 10 hours, depending on where we're stopping over, how long the layover is. But I'll give you 10 hours as a starting point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we got to remember geographically, it's kind of similar to Hawaii. It is a little bit of a hike to get out there, but more than worth it. Any other questions?
No?
Nope.
All right, well, thank you, Mitchell. We appreciate it as always, giving us some more information about it. If anybody does come with more questions, I'll feel free to shoot them to you or to the website for more information, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions, I'll be happy to help, but otherwise, thank you all very much for coming out here today. Try and stay warm out there and take care, everyone.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
Nice job.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.